Hello, everyone. So I hope you can hear me. I cannot see any of you, but I hope it will be fine. So I'm David Pereira, and today I'm going to talk about Agile Manifesto is outdated and we need a Product Manifesto. I walk you through why I think that, and I have been written articles about it and also hosting some sessions to build the Product Manifesto. And that's what we're going to talk today. So I don't know if I can see any of the comments or something just to confirm everything is fine. I'm just looking here at this Slack channel and then I will start sharing my screen. I hope it's fine. Yeah, so confirm. So I'm looking forward here to our conversation and to the exchange. So let me just share with you what I have today, and I hope you enjoy. And here we go. So I hope you can also yep. So you can see my presentation. Let's start then. As I mentioned, I have a perception that Agile Manifesto is long gone, and we do need the Product Manifesto. And for today, what you can expect from this talk are these briefly topics. I will just give a brief introduction of the story behind Agile Manifesto and also the side effects of that and why I perceive that as outdated. And I will share some experience where following Agile Manifesto blindly, in my case, I failed, and where I succeed by not following. And then I will come up with a Product Manifesto as a draft that I have been working with other product leaders all over the globe and share with you. And ideally, we have some exchange about it. So let's start with this. If we look at the Agile Manifesto, before that, Agile Manifesto is a bit old already. It's like 2 decades. And before it, like 2 decades ago, how software was developed, we need to understand the challenge before we understand how Agile Manifesto came to be what it is. And when we look at 2 decades ago, what were the challenges? The challenges were related to many aspects that we still have, but back then, matching customers' expectation was a nightmare because if you remember, everything was designed up front. And it's like trying to believe that a plan can ensure we will deliver of the what the customers want. And that didn't lead to a lot of successes. Actually, to the contrary, to a lot of frustrations. And another aspect was how the software was developed was creating a lot of silo effects and the lack of responsibility. For example, there was a team responsible to define what to do, and this person would write a lot of requirements, very prescriptive with all use case and so on, and throw over the fence to the software engineering team, and they would just implement. And the responsibility was on the technical aspect, not from end to end. And another aspect that frustrated a lot of people was the interaction between business and devs. I put here as devs, but I would say as software engineering in general, because it was like a service provider relationship, and they wouldn't talk to each other directly to understand what was the business needs, what they would like to achieve. It was more like delivering what they wanted, not what they needed. And going deeper into the how, because here I'm talking about the challenge, matching customer expectation challenge, design upfront, silo effect, and also the no interaction. But how was the software development itself? Well, it was more or less like this. The features were for stakeholders because they would assume they know the needs of the end users and they would know better than anyone else. Then the teams would deliver exactly what they asked for. And then the customers would end up saying, well, that's not exactly what I need. But this would take so long because the focus was on building and not learning. I remember I started working as a software developer. Oh, I'm from Brazil, so these things took a little bit longer to get there, but I started working software developer. I think it was 2006. And back then, we were still very, very waterfall, and some some projects would take like 3 to 6 months until we would get feedback from a real end user. So the focus was always on building, not learning. We wanted to build, and if we would meet deadlines, pow, success. That's what we believed. Yeah, that was not really what happened. And also another challenge was change were one outcome. So if we wanted to change something, we would need to go to a painful change request process. Oh, we need to reevaluate the scope. Do we change the scope? Then it's a scope creep. How didn't you know that before, dear project manager? Or we need to put more money. If we increase the scope, we need to discuss about timeline. Funny enough, nobody was talking about value. It was about just and it was about requests and so on. Chains were not part of the reality. People didn't want to have that. It was bad. Chains meant bad project management. And then it came to long time to market. And obviously, this scenario needed a change. Just out of curiosity, I have seen that happening even until now. Many companies face a lot of trouble with this. And I mean, here in Germany, for example, wow, I have seen many things related to like the higher in the hierarchy you are, the stronger your opinion gets, and then that becomes the truth. So the problems of 2 decades ago are still present, but that's not what we are going to talk today. We are going to talk about how to provide guidance. But looking here, what needed 2 decades ago? The same thing we need now, a dramatic change. So a dramatic change was needed. And then some guys there went skiing and they came up with Agile Manifesto. And you need to understand that Agile Manifesto was created by developers and for developers. And the goal of Agile Manifesto was to change this dreadful scenario. And it's very simple. I guess most of you have heard about it. Maybe you have used some things like this, but it's focusing on individuals and interactions, not on process and tools. Ensure that our software is working. Back then, software was buggy and was complicated, and the focus was on documentation and matching requirements and so on. And here, very important aspect, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan. These 4 values, wow, they changed the industry quite a lot. People started following and started sequence of development. And some of them were good and some of them were not that good, which we will also talk here. What did it lead to? When we look at the Agile Manifesto, well, of course, it changed how software is developed. And by here, I'm saying software, not product. Because we will get to the point here. Agile Manifesto was done by developers for developers. It changed. Software is developed in shorter cycles. So we have sprints. Sometimes we use Kanban, so we can have even daily deliveries, weekly deliveries, and so on. But it really changed, and the focus was on collaboration. How can we learn faster? How do we ensure that what we are building matters? And of course, that increased the interaction between business and devs. And you can look at me and say, wow, so why would we need a change? Well, this is about software, and product can be a software, can be a service, can be something else. And I think we need something sharper related to product, because Agile also has its dark side. It created some things a bit weird, if we know. Like, what were the side effects of Agile Manifesto, for example? Some of the side effects, yeah, you may not agree with me, but I will tell. There's a certification industry. And what do I mean by that? How many certificates can you get? If you go to Scrum.org, you can get the PSPO, PSM, and level 1, 2, 3, and then it goes. Or if you go to the Scrum Alliance, you can get the CSPO, you can get the others. Or maybe you take a certificate for SAFe. Quite interesting, right? But there's something even more interesting behind it. How easy is for someone to get a certificate as a product owner? On Scrum.org, you just need to memorize a set of questions, and then you get the certificate if you get 85% right. I would say you don't need more than 2 days maybe to prepare and get the certificate. And then you are called a professional product owner without any experience. Funny. That's quite interesting. And also for the CSPO, you attend a 2-day course, and there's a big chance the guy who is training you has no hands-on experience whatsoever, but he's a Scrum trainer, and then he can train you how to do Scrum. And you may look at me and say like, well, but Scrum doesn't mean you need to be, doesn't, it's not for product managers. It's just one part for the delivery. Well, but the product owner is the responsible for maximizing the value. And that leads also to some other confusions. Some people think that the product owner is responsible for doing the thing right, while the product manager is responsible for defining what the right thing is. I would disagree to that. I think product owner is not a backlog manager. Because in this case, if you have two people driving the bus, you don't have any accountable for the trip at all. You need to have end-to-end responsibility. And it doesn't matter the title. What matters is you are accountable from end to end. But the certificate industry created something quite awful. People are called professionals trained by someone who has no hands-on experience. And what does that lead to? To a dreadful pattern, which is called the feature factory. All that you do is to ensure that your backlog is full of items to be delivered, and success is celebrated when you deliver more. The more you deliver, the happier the business is. And I don't think that is about product management, right? You don't want to keep the machine running. You want to keep it going in the right direction. I have reflected a lot. What is a good product? I felt in this feature factor trap because when I started my career as a product owner, so to say, I think it was 10 years ago, I didn't know what that was. And I was just following some things, and I started just prioritizing backlog and delivering things without an override to go and so on. But what is a good product? I used to think that a good product is the one that has nothing else to add. But this is wrong. A good product is the one that has nothing else to remove. So it's not about adding features. It's about the outcome the features created. And some of them will not create outcome. So you need to remove. You just need to kill it. Kill the distractions and ensure your users connect to your value proposition. Yeah, that was one of the side effects. And for me and many teams, it transformed to a kind of fast waterfall. So every 2 weeks we deliver something, but design upfront and so on. And we still do the same. We assume impact and we don't measure the result. Quite funny, right? I don't know why that happens. We assume impact and don't measure the results. And I'm not the only one talking about it. You may look at me and say, hey, David, come on, you're crazy. You're talking a nonsense thing. Well, this guy here, Marty Kagan, some time ago, he wrote an article about the pathology of CSPO. And there was a shitstorm on LinkedIn. And take a look at this statement. He's saying that there are more than 100,000 people that have become the certified Scrum product owner. And he doesn't challenge the value of this. He thinks that it's right to pursue this training, but then it comes to the certification industry that I'm saying. The problem is some people have this training as their only training in product management, and this is horrible. And then you say also, as Marty wrote here, what's more, the person that trained them how to be a product owner is almost never a proven product manager with experience from a strong product company. Yeah, so that is one of the side effects. And recruiting, some people, I would say, they rule out professionals without certificate. If you don't have a CSPO or PSPO, you're not up for the job. Quite weird that such an easy certificate. But there's something more that made Agile descend to something like a faster waterfall, as I said. Because Agile was something done for developers, by developers, for developers. And when I look why Agile fails so often, and when I mean Agile is any framework you try to implement or the mentality and so on, a critical problem for me, it starts with the top. Executives are just unwilling to renounce their power. Yeah, that is a strong statement. But I have been in 12 product companies so far, and I have received many in my life, many prescriptive roadmaps, what to be delivered by when. And I fought many times this, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. It was hard moment that I had the go that I could base my decisions upon that. Generally, I had a solution that I needed to find a way how to meet the deadline. Well, of course, as a rebel person, I always challenge that. But the executives are unwilling to renounce their power because the unknown scares them. And then, as I said, they define what needs to be done by when. And where is the fun here? So it's not where you should land, but what you should deliver by when. And this is embracing no empiricism at all. And this is the core of agility. It's the core of Scrum, for example. And then what happens is Agile is used as a process and not as a mindset. So companies love process because it gives us the illusion that, we are on the right track. We have a plan, we can follow it. And then you look at some marketing frameworks, like that one called, what is it? Safe, the undercover waterfall agent. Yeah, they call it as, they have the audacity of saying we are agile, but you can barely find the customer. And I used to think that agile was all about figuring out how to deliver value for the customers. Well, safe, it's about creating a process that executives love and then they can implement. And I'd like to quote here Vilanian, the co-founder of Serious Scrum, publication on Medium. Top management believes it is too risky to have truly self-managing teams. This is why Scrum hits a glass ceiling. I have seen very few teams that were empowered to make all decisions. Most teams, they had a limited space to make decisions. And you know what? Start delivering more output and failing. And what I think is we're just missing the point. Because at the end of the day, agile is a means to an end. The end itself is about creating value. All that matters is that. And once I read something, I was quite interested in that. Like, there are three things you need to ask. Are we delivering value in a stable pace? Yes. Do we like how we work? Yeah. Should we change anything? So it's always starts about value. If we deliver that in a stable pace, and if you like how we work, and what about what should they change? What should they do better? So it's all a means to an end. And in the end, we want to create value sooner. And what I want to go through here is about some traps. Because when we think in agile alone, it can be dangerous. It can be quite dangerous, actually. I will just share some things that happened with me, and then you can make your own conclusions. And I would be glad to hear from you. I hope it's possible here in this platform as well. So the first thing for me is like agile is not enough, not alone. You need to have more than that. And the point is, it doesn't really matter which framework you work with. I have seen a discussion, and I write quite often on Medium. Maybe you have stumbled upon one of my articles or something like this, and it can be that you have seen some things there. And many people ask me, which is the best agile framework I should use? Should I use Scrum? Should I use Kanban? Or Safe, the undercover waterfall agent, as I said? Or less, maybe? Or maybe Nexus or something else? It's not a point, because there is no framework that will ensure you will succeed. There are many other things behind it. So I think it's a waste of time thinking a lot on the framework we're going to use. That is just to prepare the room. And what happens is how you use the room. Also, leadership needs to empower us. If the leadership is already not empowering, well, we have a big problem. No matter what we are going to do, we're just trapped. And I just want to look at two principles of Agile Manifesto and ask your perspective here. So I think if you follow the manifesto blindly, you fall into trap. Take a look at this one of the principles. Working software is the primary measure of success, of progress. Can that be? Working software. I have seen many features working perfectly. No bug, nothing at all. But the only thing that caused was distraction to end users because it delivered no value. And users actually couldn't benefit from the application at all, from the product. And I don't think that this could be the primary measure of progress. For me, the ultimate measure of progress is how fast we create value. That's the only thing that matters. If you're not creating value, we have a problem, and then we need to do something about it. And this second principle here, business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project. Quite interesting this. I have a different perspective. I think we need to talk to business people, of course, and we need to be close to them. But when you go to the doctor, what do you tell the doctor? Do you tell the problems you have? Do you tell the doctor, I have a headache, I have a stomach ache, or something? Or do you come to the doctor and say, oh, I want to have a surgery because I need to do some, I want you to operate my stomach. Do you tell the doctor that? The doctor will say, no, come on, I am the specialist. Tell me the symptoms. Tell me what is happening with you, and then I decide what to do. And what I have seen is we became kind of waiter in product management. Also, developers haven't like that. We get the requirements from business people. What do you want? And then we just put an item inside the backlog and expect that's gonna do the work. So we ask them what they want, but we forget checking what they need. We forget actually validating what are the assumptions behind it. Do end users really need that? Will that create value for end users and business? Why does that matter when we look at our product strategy? How is that connect to our goals? So I don't think it's just about working together. There's more than that. And connected to this, I want to share with you one of my failures. And I had many of them. I hit the wall several times. And as I said, I started my product journey more than a decade ago. And that happened out of the blue. And I became a product owner. I didn't know what was that. Someone trusted me. And the person said, I would like you to help me in this business because you can make complex message simple and help me grow our product. I said, okay. I was up for the challenge because as a developer before, I was frustrated because many times, people were just giving me things to implement and they didn't matter for real end users. And then I became a product owner initially, but as I said, I don't care about the title. In this case, I had end-to-end responsibility. So the failure was the following. We were in Brazil, a trade marketing company, and one of our services was about training merchandisers. And we had around 4,000 people all over Brazil, and 10% of them were trainers. And these merchandise trainers would go to stores like Adidas, Nike, and other brands to train people who worked in the store how to best advertise the products. And they had some trainings with dozens of people, sometimes hundreds of people in conference and so on. But what was the challenge? Once the business analyst came to me and said, hey, David, I really need your help. Let me show you something. I received this amount of Excel files from our merchandise trainers, and all of them are different. It's a nightmare for me to consolidate these files and understand which trainings are being successful, which not, and how could we do better. And I got quite interested within this problem, consolidating the data. And I kept talking to the business analyst, and I saw how much time he was investing on that. And I tried to improve something related to efficiency. It was one of my first projects. And we invested 3 sprints in that, and we created the training platform, and then the merchandise trainers would use to prepare the training and also to put the results there and everything else. And the reports would be generated automatically. And we wouldn't need 3 analysts to do this job anymore. It would be just automatically, and they could focus on creating more value for the business. So after 3 sprints, I traveled to the south of Brazil to present to some merchandise trainers, and I went with this business analyst. I'll call him Joe. And Joe and me, we were super happy and excited about it. We were proud of our product and so on. And when I arrived there, I started talking to the merchandisers and so on, and they were curious what we had to show. We presented. They didn't look so excited after the presentation, but one guy was brave and he raised his hand and he said, "Okay, I understand this, but tell me one thing. How do I do that in the airplane? The only time I can fill these forms are when I'm traveling. I travel all over Brazil and my agenda is quite packed and I don't have any other time. And you said it's an online solution." Well, that was 2012. There was no internet in the airplanes, at least not in Brazil. And then we had a problem to fix that we shouldn't have in the first place. We failed. And there are some reasons I failed. The first reason is very simple, as you imagine. I focus on business stakeholders solely. I didn't ask any question about the end user. My bad. Yeah. But the problem here was building a solution was our goal. Yeah. And I didn't understand the problem. Because the problem itself the end users had was actually they didn't even have a problem. The business analysts had, maybe we could do something different. But if you look at these, I worked very closely to the business to the business people, and the developers also was were close to them, and software was working, yeah, perfectly, but not for end users, not the way they do when they want to get the job done. So maybe if I had written a job story when I am flying, just this phrase would have solved everything. Well, but I didn't know. I wrote prescriptive requirements back then. But I think we need to move from this. And that's what happened after in my career. Let me share another story with you. And the point is moving from being agile to real delivering value, because we are product people. So we want to create value. What we want to do actually is to change people's lives for the better. That's all that matters. If you do something that changes a little bit for better, it's already enough. And quoting here Jeff Button, remember, at the end of the day, your job isn't to get the requirements right. Your job is to change the world. Simple like that. Now let me share with you one of my successes. Still in Brazil, after years in the corporate world, I wanted to go to a startup, and I enjoyed one. They wanted to solve the problem of bureaucracy for selling cars in Brazil. Two problems. Car owners would struggle with bureaucracy, and second, you could be scammed, and it could take quite a while. And in this startup, the idea was we help people sell their cars painlessly. So no bullshit. That's it. And the idea is we made that happen in 1.5 hours. And how? A car owner would drive to one of our inspections point, and then we would inspect the car 30 minutes and put in an auction platform for 30 more minutes, and dealers all over Brazil would compete for the car and they would bid. It was an auction. And then we would just present the offer to the car owner, and he could decide to accept or go home. So if he would accept, go home with money, take a cab, we pay the cab, that's it. If not, to just take your car and go home. And we would make money on the transaction cut, that's it. But funny, what happened was my first day was like a startup movie. The CEO invited me to go to the hospital. Yeah, that's it. I started my first day in a hospital. His wife was sick, and I went to the lobby. We had more or less like 15 minutes talk, and what he told me is our dealer's app sucked, and I want you to improve engagement by 30%. You have 3 months to do that. And by the way, we have $10 million, and with the cash flow we have, we will be bankrupt in 10 months. So we burn 1 million every month. We better make this work, because if not, I'm not gonna get a Series A investment. So increase this fucking app by 30%. And instead of just jumping to action, I reflect a bit. I said, okay, now I already hit the wall sometimes. I learned some tricks. And what it was clear to me is the following: increase the engagement by 30%. I didn't care about the app. The app was a solution. And I decided to talk to some car dealers. Before talking to anyone, I went to car dealers. I visited 20 of them. And by the fifth, I already identified the pattern. The pattern was easy. Car dealers wouldn't buy any car from the app. They wouldn't trust the app because the pictures were too small. So they say, I don't trust this. I need to have some guarantee. So there are some things I want to see and so on. So he wanted something we were not offering, some guarantee that he could return the car if the car didn't match his expectations, and he could name that. And the other was he wanted to see the pictures bigger. And I observed that they would buy cars from a web platform, but they would invite the person to go there. But maybe they would be willing to place bids if they would use a desktop application. And I shared this idea with the developers and so on. And they told me, well, actually, we have the backend fully built. Maybe we can do some hacks and just make it work. And I think it took us more or less 3 to 4 weeks. We got something tested and so on. And funny enough, after 3 months, we increased the auction not by 30, but by 50%. And the CEO asked me, how did you do it? I said, well, exactly by not doing what you asked me. We discontinued the app and we built a web platform. And he said, are you out of your mind? The world is mobile. I said, maybe, but not our dealer's world. And why did I succeed in this case? Simple. I didn't follow what stakeholders wanted. I focused on understanding the real end user and seeing them in their scenario. And by understanding their scenario, we solve the problem by building a solution, not building a solution that creates a problem, as the previous example. And this is what I connected after these years of experience and talking to more people. I, I believe that we do need a product manifesto because we need to be value driven and we need to ensure we solve problems, but not only any problem, we solve problems that matters. And we need to stop once for all this feature factory. It's horrible to work in a team that you will be rewarded only by the features you deliver and nobody cares about the value you create. This is horrible. Many teams are just trapped, and I think we shouldn't trap them. And I think our current challenges are different than the one 20 years ago. We don't really struggle anymore to build software. We struggle to deliver real value. And that's the reason it's time to sharpen how we do things, how we provide guidance. And I know you may look at me and say, come on, another manifesto. It already created the certification industry and many other side effects and so on. Yeah, but I still believe that it could be different. It could be something that provide guidance, that help teams shifting from delivering solutions to solving problems. And also, it could untrap teams because they are just trapped. And it could inspire them to challenge the status quo. And let me tell you one thing. I am working with 15 product leaders all over the globe, and we started already creating a manifesto. I'm using with people I work with, and the results are great. And I want to share with you something here that is a draft, and we are collecting feedback to make it better. And the values, they are, I would say, more to the point of finishing. But the first and far most important, simplicity over perfection. That is one of the killers we need. It's not about being perfect. It's about starting simple, learning, and being empirical. And it matters more pursuing goal over executing plans. Following a plan, it will just fool ourselves. And another thing is, many times I see teams thinking on solutions without knowing the problem. Wow, this is crazy. I think we need to start knowing the problem before we think on solutions. And not that drives me mad is about the development based on opinions. So end users needs over stakeholders' opinion. You may look at me and say, but an end user is also a stakeholder. Yeah, it is, but we don't want opinions, we want needs. And by the way, I don't really like the word stakeholder because one size fits all. It's not really good. But what we need to focus is on matching the needs and creating solutions for that. The last one here is measuring results over assuming impact. Because we can assume impact, but we need to ensure the result is delivered. The faster we measure, the quicker we succeed. And we created also some principles that we believe to provide guidance. And here you can see them. Mainly, they are about ensuring best practices. And as I mentioned in the beginning, generating value is the ultimate measure of success. That's all we want to do. And there's a confusion what value is. People just don't understand sometimes, and we need to ensure we have shared understanding on that. Another is about we need to focus on solutions only once we understand the problem, not before. So never start evaluating solutions until you know the problem. And I have heard one word in plural, I hate it, priorities. I think the more we prioritize, the less efficient we become. It is about serializing things. So set one priority at a time and say no to whatever distracts you from that. And we need to focus on learn by finding fast ways of validating our assumptions. And key, leadership trusts product teams to do the right thing and empower them to make decisions. And the other principles we have here is like just kill the features you don't need. Just kill dinosaurs. You need to keep your product uncluttered. You need to keep as clean as possible. Another thing also, you need to create space for the new. You know, backlog items are not like wine. They don't get better with time. Actually, they are like milk. They spoil very fast. So what I like doing is extreme backlog cleaning. Every 3 months, I kill everything that was not touched over the last 3 months. So that's what I do. I don't want my backlog to distract me from learnings. And stakeholders, we need to strive for alignment. We can agree to disagree. This is fine. We want alignment. We don't want to please them like a kind of development by compromise. That's not how product management is done. And it's impossible to succeed if you treat your stakeholders as your end users directly. I mean, business stakeholders, because otherwise you will deliver what they want might not be what the end users need. And it's key for us to differentiate the need from want. And as I mentioned, what matters more is the feedback from end users than opinions from stakeholders. We can navigate on opinions and ask for evidence and so on. And the key to success is you need to define what leads to success and create ways of measuring. I would be glad to get your resonance on this, and we are working on that, and soon we will put it live. And that's the point here. We need to be rebellious to succeed. Don't be a rule follower. Be a value maximizer. Thank you.